Every dollar you earn shows up at a fork in the road, and you make a choice about it whether you notice or not. You can save it, tuck it somewhere safe, where it sits and waits and stays exactly the size it is. Or you can invest it, hand it a job, and let it go to work making more dollars while you sleep. Most people think those two words mean roughly the same thing. They do not. And the gap between them, stretched across a lifetime, is the difference between running a machine and guarding a jar. Today I want to show you why the very first dollar you ever invest is worth more than the very last one you'll ever earn, and why flipping that switch on purpose is the most important money decision almost nobody actually makes. Here is the plan for the next few minutes. This is episode 1 of a series about building one thing, a machine that quietly turns money into more money for the rest of your life. Before we open the hood on the engine, we have to answer the question underneath everything. Why bother investing at all instead of just saving? So I'm going to hand you 6 gears. 1. The real difference between saving and investing, safety versus growth. 2. Inflation, the silent tax that punishes the money you leave standing still. 3. The actual job of a dollar to go make more dollars. 4. The fact that you're almost certainly investing already, you just haven't been doing it on purpose. 5. The one thing you must build before you invest a cent, the on-ramp. And 6. Why the earlier you flip the switch, the more the machine makes forever. Let's start at the fork in the road. Picture that fork every single time money lands in your hands. Down the left path is saving. Saving is a jar. You put a dollar in, you close the lid, and you have done something genuinely good. You have protected that dollar from being spent. When you open the jar in a year, the dollar is still there, safe, unchanged. Down the right path is investing. Investing is not a jar, it's a machine. You feed the same dollar into it, and instead of sitting still, that dollar goes out and buys you a tiny piece of something that works. A slice of businesses, a loan that pays you interest, a real asset that earns. Both paths keep your money, but only one of them puts your money to work. And here is the thing nobody tells you clearly. Leaving every dollar in the jar is not the safe choice you think it is. It just moves the risk somewhere you can't see it. Let me make the two paths concrete, because the difference is bigger than almost anyone guesses. Take the same modest amount set aside every month for 30 years. Down the jar path, the money just accumulates. You end with exactly what you put in, dollar for dollar, and not 1 cent more. Down the machine path, that same monthly amount, earning a reasonable long-term return, doesn't just add up, it snowballs, and the pile at the end can be several times larger than the sum of everything you deposited. Same effort, same discipline, same monthly sacrifice. The only difference is which path you sent the dollars down. And notice what did the extra work? Not you. You didn't deposit more. The machine manufactured the difference while you lived your life. That gap, that multiple, is the entire reason this series exists. Everything from here is about how to build the machine that makes it, and it starts by understanding why the jar quietly loses. Gear 1. Saving and investing are 2 different jobs, and you need both in the right order. People use the words interchangeably, and that single confusion costs more than almost any bad stock pick ever will. So let's separate them cleanly. Saving is about safety and access. It's money you might need soon, kept somewhere it cannot fall in value, and you can grab it instantly, the buffer under everything else. Its job is to be there, guaranteed, on the worst day. Investing is a completely different job. It's about growth over long stretches of time. It's money you deliberately do not need soon, sent out to work and grow, accepting that it will bounce around in value along the way in exchange for getting bigger in the end. Here's the trap. Most people do only the first one, forever. They save and save into the jar, feel responsible, and never flip a single dollar over to the growth side. So their money stays perfectly safe and perfectly stuck. And a smaller group makes the opposite mistake. They invest money they'll need next month, then get forced to yank it out at the worst possible moment. The skill isn't choosing one. It's knowing which dollar has which job. Near-term money saves. Long-term money invests. Get that division right and almost everything else in this series gets easier. Save first for safety, then invest the rest for growth. Gear 2, and this is the one that changes how you see the jar forever. Inflation is a silent tax, and it is charged specifically on money that sits still. Here is the uncomfortable truth about that safe jar. While your dollar sits there unchanged, the world around it does not hold still. Prices drift upward year after year. The same groceries, the same rent, the same coffee slowly cost more. So even though the number on your dollar never drops, what that dollar can actually buy quietly shrinks. Every single year, in the dark. A dollar you set aside today might buy noticeably less a decade from now, and much less a few decades out. Not because anyone took money out of your jar, but because the ruler you measure it with kept stretching. That's the tax nobody sends you a bill for. And it flips the whole idea of safe on its head. The jar feels safe because the number never falls. But in what it can buy, which is the only thing that actually matters, the jar is slowly, guaranteed, losing. Standing still is not standing still. It's sliding backward on a moving walkway. This is the real reason you can't just save your way to security. To even keep up with inflation, your money has to grow. And to grow, it has to work. The machine isn't about getting greedy. At the most basic level, it's about not going backward. Beating inflation is the floor, not the ceiling. Gear 3. Every dollar is a worker you can either lay off or put on the payroll. This is the mental shift that makes investing click, so sit with it for a second. Stop thinking of a dollar as a thing you spend or store, and start thinking of it as a tiny worker, an employee that can go out and earn for you. When that dollar sits in the jar, it's a worker sitting idle on your couch, eating snacks, doing nothing, slowly getting less useful as inflation nibbles at it. When you invest that dollar, you send it out to a job. Buy a slice of the stock market, and your dollar becomes a tiny co-owner of hundreds of real businesses, earning a share of their profits. Buy a bond, and your dollar becomes a lender, collecting interest for the loan. Either way, the dollar clocks in and starts earning, and here's the magic part. The dollars it earns are also workers, who then go get jobs of their own. That's the whole engine in one image. Workers hiring workers, a payroll that grows itself. A rich person isn't rich because they have a big jar of idle dollars. They're rich because they have an army of dollars out working, earning more dollars around the clock while they sleep and eat and live. You can start hiring that army with your very next paycheck. It doesn't take a fortune to begin. It takes the decision to send your dollars to work instead of letting them sit on the couch. Gear 4, and this one usually surprises people. You are almost certainly already an investor, you just haven't been doing it on purpose. A lot of people watching this think of investing as some separate, advanced, risky thing that other people do. People with suits, or nerve, or money to burn. But look at your actual life. If you have any kind of retirement account through work, money is already being invested on your behalf, every payday, into the market. You're an investor. If you own a home, you've made a large, leveraged, concentrated real estate investment. You're an investor. If you're paying into any kind of pension, someone is investing that money to fund your future. You're an investor. The idea that investing is exotic and optional is one of the most expensive myths in personal finance because it keeps people passive. They think they're not the type. So they leave every other dollar in the jar while the investing they're already doing runs on autopilot, unexamined, uncontrolled. The shift this whole series is about is simple. Stop being an accidental investor and become a deliberate one. Understand what you already own. Decide on purpose where your other dollars go instead of letting them drift. You don't have to become someone new to invest. You already are one. The only question is whether you're going to keep doing it with your eyes closed or open them and take the wheel. Gear 5, and this is the one that keeps you from wrecking the machine before it ever runs. Build the on-ramp before you hit the highway. The emergency fund comes first. I know this whole video has been about getting money out of the jar and into the machine, so here is the crucial exception, the one pile of cash you keep on purpose. Before you invest a single long-term dollar, you build a buffer of ordinary, boring, do-nothing cash, enough to cover several months of your actual expenses if life punches you in the mouth. A job loss, a medical bill, a car that dies, a roof that leaks. Now here is why this cash matters so much for investing, which almost nobody explains. The emergency fund is not separate from your investing plan. It is what protects it. The single most destructive thing an investor can do is be forced to sell at the worst possible moment, in a crash, because they suddenly need the money and it's all locked in the machine. The emergency fund is the shock absorber that stops that from ever happening. When the surprise bill lands, you calmly pay it from the cash buffer and you never have to touch the machine. You just let it keep running through the storm. So yes, the jar is a trap for your long-term money, but a specific, deliberate cash buffer for emergencies isn't the jar being lazy. It's the foundation that lets everything else stay invested. Save the on-ramp first. Then, and only then, you merge onto the highway. Gear 6, and it's the reason not to close this video and start next year. The earlier you flip the switch, the more the machine makes, and the cost of waiting is brutally, invisibly high. We'll spend all of the next episode on the engine of this compounding, so here I'll just plant the flag. Because your invested dollars earn, and those earnings then earn, the results don't add up in a straight line. They curve upward, and the biggest gains come at the very end, from the dollars that have been working the longest. Which means the dollars you invest earliest are, by a wide margin, the most powerful dollars you will ever invest. A dollar you put to work today has its entire lifetime to grow, and grow on its growth. A dollar you invest 10 years from now has 10 fewer years of that snowballing. And it never catches up because you can't buy back the time it missed. This is why the first dollar you invest genuinely is worth more than the last dollar you'll ever earn. The first one has the most runway. And it's why "I'll start when I earn more" is such an expensive sentence. It isn't neutral. It's costing you the most valuable, longest working dollars you'll ever have, and they're the exact ones you're choosing not to send. You don't need a big amount to start. You need time on the clock, and the clock is running right now whether your dollars are working or not. The best day to flip the switch was years ago. The second best day is today. So how do you actually turn the machine on? How do you go from a jar person to a machine person this month? The recipe is short and boring, which is exactly why it works. Here it is, in order, because the order matters. First, separate your money into two jobs: near-term money that stays safe and reachable, and long-term money that's allowed to go to work. Most people have never once made that division. Make it. Second, build the on-ramp before the highway. Sock away that boring cash buffer, several months of expenses, so a bad week can never force you to sell the machine at the bottom. Third, find out what you're already invested in. The retirement account, the pension, the home. Because you're more of an investor than you think, and half the job is just opening your eyes to it. Fourth, take the long-term money and actually send it to work into broad, low-cost, boring investments. We'll spend the rest of this series on exactly what goes in and why, so you don't need every answer today. And fifth, start now, with whatever amount you can, because the earliest dollars are the most powerful ones you'll ever have, and every month you wait quietly removes one of them from the board. That's it. 2 jobs, an on-ramp, open eyes, dollars at work, starting today. You don't have to be rich, brave, or clever to flip the switch. You just have to stop guarding the jar and start running the machine. So tell me in the comments, are you still mostly a jar person, or have you already flipped the switch? Wherever you are, the very next dollar you send to work moves you from one to the other. This is education, not financial advice. Just the map laid out honestly so you can make the call for yourself. Next time, we open the hood on the engine itself. Compounding. How money quietly makes money. Why the curve looks flat for years and then explodes, and the one piece of mental math that lets you see it coming. That's the machine's beating heart, and once you understand it, you'll never look at a dollar the same way again. I'll see you there.